Edmond Wysinger was an African-American pioneer in California. He arrived in October 1849 at the beginning of the California Gold Rush. Wysinger was one of the early African-Americans to migrate to California from the South with his owner. Edmond was able to earn money in the gold fields in the Sierra Nevadas, which allowed him to purchase his freedom for $1,000.
After he bought his freedom, he did try his hand at different things for a couple of years, and he eventually started moving down the state of California. He landed in Merced County. He went to Mariposa. That's where he met his wife, Pernicia. And Edmond and Pernicia eventually ended up in Tulare County, where he worked as a farmhand and also a part-time preacher.
In learning about Mr. Wysinger, I really got to learn about his story. And it really was exciting to see a man who once was a slave, who bought his freedom, came to the Central Valley and really revolutionized the education landscape for black students in this area. You know, this is not just a local part of our history. This is a part of American history and a story that should be told to not just the students in Visalia, but to students across the world.
In 1862, Wysinger moved to Tulare County in Visalia, where the residents were deeply divided over the American Civil War. Many of the residents sided with the South.
The political climate in Visalia in the latter half of the 19th century was very charged. I think that's the most appropriate term for it. You have to remember that, California entered the Union before the Civil War happened. It was resulted in some interesting times. There were two newspapers. One was pro-Union, the other one was pro-Confederacy, and they were actually across the street from each other. And in fact, there was a famous case in the newspapers where the two editors, they ended up having a shootout and one killed the other. So it was violent, it was charged, and again, if you have to remember the Civil War, a lot of it had to do with slavery, and so that was a huge issue. And then you have Edmond Wysinger, who was a free black man who was fighting for equality for his son to go to school.
He was a father of 8 children, 6 boys and 2 girls. He was always stressing the importance of school and education to his children. He attempted to admit his son Arthur to the Visalia School District, but the school refused him and told him to send his son to the colored school, which was a barn outside of town. This resulted in Wysinger filing a lawsuit in October 1888, the Tulare County Court against the County Board of Education, where he lost his case. They ruled that there was a separate but equal place for children of color. By January 29, 1890, the California Supreme Court reversed the lower court's decision in Wysinger's favor, saying that California could no longer have separate but equal schools for African American children. In their ruling, the court ordered that 12-year-old Arthur Wysinger be admitted to Visalia's regular school system, or it was in violation of the 14th Amendment.
So the history of what was called the colored school at that time, it was started by a farmer named Wiley Hines. Now, Wiley Hines himself was a former slave who had moved to Tulare County, and he believed that education was important for everyone. But at the time, because navigating the legalities regarding education for children of all children, at that time, the state, they said you could have a separate school for black children. And so Wiley Hines, he actually funded the first school for children who were not white. And I say it like that because it was not just black children, it was also children who were indigenous and children who were Hispanic. So by the time Edmond wanted Arthur to go to school, he understood the importance of education, and Edmond was a self-educated man. And so he really wanted Arthur to enjoy education that is available to everyone, not just you go to this other school because the school district says so.
Not only were his contributions for his own children, but eventually his efforts had an impact on all children. but it was an opportunity to bridge the divide between two worlds and really create an understanding and create an opportunity for black kids and white kids to come together. A dream that was later to be dreamed by Dr. King. You know, a dream that was later to be seen in the Brown versus Board of Education case.
The 14th Amendment was adopted on July 9, 1868, as one of the most Reconstruction amendments. Often considered one of the most consequential amendments. It addresses citizenship rights and equal protection under the law and was proposed in response to issues related to former slaves following the American Civil War.
The Wysinger's case has been cited as precedents by a number of other legal cases. There's another one in the 1940s called Westchester versus Mendez, and that ended segregated schools for Hispanic students, and they actually referenced Wysinger versus Cruikshanks. Cruikshanks was the superintendent who did not have the authority to tell Arthur to go to this other school.
At a time in our country where we may feel deeply divided, it's stories like these that allow us to have a greater understanding in the importance of valuing the quality of education. That's really what Mr. Wysinger wanted to put at the forefront, is he valued the quality of education for his own children.
Edmond would die a year later, never seeing his son enter the Visalia regular school, but changing history in California and the nation forever. Through his case and others, finally, in 1954, in Brown versus Board of Education, the United States Supreme Landmark case, all schools in the United States of America were desegregated, and the first step for educational justice began.
Mm-hmm.